John Ernst Steinbeck Jr. was born February 27, 1902, in Salinas, California, to John Ernst Steinbeck Sr. and Olive Hamilton. He had 3 sisters, Mary, Beth, and Esther. The photo shown is of the Steinbeck family household. The Steinbeck family was very well known and respected within the Salinas community. John Steinbeck was a Mason, and Olive was an active member of the Order of the Eastern Star and founder of the Wanderers. As a child, John became very fond of nature and the outdoors. His family often spent summers on the Pacific coast. His mother introduced him to literature at a young age, and he fell in love with it. His favorite book, Stories About King Arthur by Thomas Malory, was the main influence of his writing. By the young age of 14, John knew he wanted to be a writer. He spent hours at a time in his room writing stories and poems. After high school, he spent 6 years at Stanford University, going to please his parents, and only took classes in writing, literature, and science because those were his only interests. He worked as a farm laborer and a lab assistant to help pay for college. The manual labor he did inspired his writing. Eventually, he dropped out of college without a degree and moved to New York as a reporter. He also helped build Madison Square Garden. After his move to New York, John focused more on his writing. He wrote his first novel, Cup of Gold, a book about Henry Morgan the pirate. It was a romance, but ultimately unsuccessful. Shortly after publishing Cup of Gold in 1929, John married Carol Henning in January of 1930. After 13 years of marriage and no children together, however, they ultimately divorced. Just a few months later, after divorcing his wife, John married Gwendolyn Conger. After marrying Gwendolyn, she and John had 2 sons together. They named their sons John Steinbeck IV and Thomas Miles. Unfortunately, his second marriage also ended in divorce in 1948. He remarried in 1950 to Elaine Scott. John Steinbeck is known for his 3 most popular novels. He was known for a rough approach, expressing his ideas, concerns, and feelings regarding social issues. His 3 most popular novels are Tortilla Flat, Of Mice and Men, and The Grapes of Wrath. John Steinbeck's books were not just made into movies, but instead classics. Often they starred the cream of the crop in Hollywood. In 1939, Of Mice and Men premiered on film starring Burgess Meredith and Lon Chaney Jr. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. The main characters, Lenny and George, were brought back to life as TV movies 3 additional times and were played by Robert Blake and Randy Quaid in 1981, and again by John Malkovich and Gary Sinise in 1992. In 1940, The Grapes of Wrath starred Henry Fonda when it won 2 Oscar awards, neither of which went to John. Gary Sinise was also involved in the TV remake in 1991. Here is a clip of the trailer for Of Mice and Men, which starred Gary Sinise and John Malkovich.
Told me like you done before about them other guys in the barrage.
Guys like us, they don't got nobody in the world gives a hoot and hell about us.
But not us, Stuart. Tell about us now. Because
I got you.
And I got you.
I spend all my time telling you things and you forget them.
I remember about the rabbits. If I get in any trouble, I don't get to tend them rabbits.
You're nuts.
Don't you even look at her. Keep away from her. I ain't saying he's bright. He ain't. But he's a damn good worker.
You're not much of a talker, is he?
Suppose he don't want to talk.
What the hell are you getting into this for?
We travel together.
You said I was your cousin.
Well, that was a lie. If I was a relative of yours, I'd shoot myself.
In a world where every man was alone, they had each other. In a time of darkness,
Lenny, I told you not to bring that pup in here.
I ain't got no pup.
they had laughter. In a land that had lost its hope,
I wish somebody'd shoot me when I ain't no good. But they won't do that. They'll can me.
they had a dream.
We gonna live off the fatted land and have rabbits.
Then you could feed them alfalfa.
You damn right.
Written for the screen by Academy Award winner Horton Foote, from one of America's greatest novels.
What the hell are you laughing about?
You!
Courage. Gary Sinise. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, directed by Gary Sinise.
Sweeping across the country comes one of the great literary achievements of our time. A human, revealing, soul-stirring story that instantly becomes the most discussed novel of modern literature, The Grapes of Wrath.
The Grapes of Wrath, please.
I'll have to put you on the waiting list. We've never had such a demand for a book. Do you have a copy of Grapes of Wrath?
Sorry, we're all sold out.
Yes, The Grapes of Wrath. Well, send me as many copies as you can. I can't supply the demand.
The Grapes of Wrath.
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 The Grapes of Wrath. As sales skyrocket, The Grapes of Wrath becomes the book of the nation. Everyone, everywhere, joins in the discussion of its vital problems. Due to this unprecedented popularity, producers vie for the motion picture rights. And finally, 20th Century Fox announces the purchase of the book and plans for its immediate production. A storm of discussion arouses the nation. Speculation and rumor are rife to the effect that no producer will venture to film this great dramatic masterpiece of human hearts. Darrell F. Zanuck, production head of 20th Century Fox Studios, emphatically announces that The Grapes of Wrath will be made. All of the resources of this vast studio are marshaled for the production. John Ford, Academy Award winner, is given the directorial assignment. The cast is carefully chosen to make John Steinbeck's unforgettable characters come to life. Tom Joad is played by Henry Fonda. Maud Joad is played by Jane Darwell. Casey is played by John Carradine. Grandpa is played by Charlie Greatwin. Rosa Sharon is played by Doris Bowden. Maud Joad is played by Russell Simpson. Al is played by O.Z. Whitehead. Muley is played by John Quaylen. Connie is played by Eddie Quillen. And now, at last, The Grapes of Wrath is ready for the screen as the motion picture captures all the drama, suspense, action, tears and laughter of the story that stirred a nation.
The following clip from the New York Times gives a short explanation for John Steinbeck's many influences in writing The Grapes of Wrath.
In 1936, Steinbeck was approached by a San Francisco newspaper to write a series of articles about migrant farm workers in California. These were the Depression years. In Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Nebraska, and Kansas, enormous numbers of people were being dispossessed of their small farms through a combination of bad farming practices and harsh winds that blew away the topsoil, creating a so-called dust bowl in these regions. Tens of thousands of families made the long trek to California in search of agricultural work and a better life. But their hopes met a harsh reality. As Steinbeck drove down through the Central Valley, stopping at migrant camps along the way, he wrote, "Thousands of them are crossing the borders in ancient, rattling automobiles, destitute and hungry and homeless, ready to accept any pay so that they may eat and feed their children." Steinbeck was startled and outraged by what he saw. Whole families living in cardboard boxes. Babies were dying from lack of food and medicine. Out of this experience, Steinbeck created his great novel, The Grapes of Wrath, which awakened the entire nation's heart and conscience to the plight of these people. In 1962, John Steinbeck was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Steinbeck's novels are acclaimed for their combination of realistic naturalism and moral optimism, two qualities not commonly found together. This optimism goes to show his remembrance leaves on even the gloomiest aspects of the Great Depression with a powerful sense of hope. East of Eden is considered Steinbeck's most ambitious work and the masterpiece of his later career. Even though The Grapes of Wrath is more famously and widely read, Steinbeck himself regarded East of Eden as his greatest novel. He wrote that he believed he had included in the East of Eden everything he knew about writing and everything he knew about good and evil in humanity. Though its story is not autobiographical, East of Eden does dive into the world of Steinbeck's childhood. The inspiration for the novel comes from the Bible, more specifically verses 1 through 16 from the book of Genesis. Steinbeck chose the title East of Eden from Genesis chapter 4, verse 6. The novel was not, however, a great critical success, as a number of reviewers believe that Steinbeck's portrayal of the human struggle between good and evil was depicted so broadly that it distracted from the detail and believability of his portrayals of individual characters. East of Eden was adapted for television and presented on February 8th, 9th, and 11th in 1981 on ABC. The adaptation starred Jane Seymour.
Jesus came into the earth to seek and to save you and everybody else.
We read the story of Cain and Abel, and none of us really understood it.
You got a home, you go to it.
Why did you stop writing? Why didn't you ever come home? I just got to wandering, couldn't stop.
My name is Catherine Amesbury. I'd like to come and work for you. I'm sorry, Papa. That was very bad of me.
I know you're afraid, son. All men are. But if you can bring yourself to face death, you'll never be afraid of anything again in your life.
Travels with Charlie was written by Steinbeck in 1962. He embarks on a journey to discover America in the fall of 1960. He drives a brand new 3/4-ton pickup camper truck and travels with his dog Charlie. His purpose is to learn something about the vast United States and write a book about his experiences. Beginning in Maine and traveling along the northern states through Wisconsin, the Badlands, Montana, and all places in between, to Washington and Oregon, Steinbeck then decides to visit his childhood community of Salinas in Northern California. After meeting with friends there, though many have died, he then drives southward through the length of California and then eastward through the southwest desert to Texas, Louisiana, and eventually up to Virginia before returning to New York. Steinbeck explores attitudes towards life and strangers. As he travels in his truck with a house attached to its bed that he calls Rocinante, after the horse of Don Quixote, he notes the changing landscape, the disappearance of treasured aspects of the environment, and the growth of new trends, including the increasing popularity of the mobile home and contemporary loss of roots. John Steinbeck died of heart failure on December 20th, 1968 in Manhattan, New York. He was cremated and the urn containing his ashes was buried in the Garden of Memories Cemetery in Salinas, California.